All right, so looking at the data, for the top 5 states there, we see Lagos leads with 2025 foreign debt service at 92.80 billion naira, up about 28.33% compared to the previous year. Rivers comes in second, 48.58 billion. That's for debt servicing, foreign debt servicing. It's up 110.02%. Kaduna comes in third, 47.93 billion naira for debt servicing, foreign debt servicing, 5.13% compared to 2024. Ogun State comes in at fourth with 25.20 billion. That's up 110.22% according to the data. Cross River, 21.01 billion naira, 22.86% up. Then when you look at it from a regional, from regions in Nigeria, now we see Southwest, 162.77 billion cumulative there, holds a 35% share for debt servicing costs in Nigeria. South-South, 100.37, that's cumulative, 22.04% share for that region. So definitely we're seeing the debt levels there servicing exactly. Foreign debt service in 2025 as a whole for the country, most of the states there, 455.38 billion. That's a big number. Mr. Paul Alaje, I don't know if you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so very much for having me.
Fantastic. Great to have you, sir. So definitely we've seen the numbers there according to the data. So when does borrowing, become productive debts, versus dangerous debts? Looking at the data we've seen so far, we see some states there, debt servicing rising over 100%.
Yes, debt service has increased sporadically, nearly over 100%. That has major implication for the subnational economies. It will also serve as a cost, and the cost here, as economists, is the true cost. It's not cost of just servicing. The true cost, which is worrisome, is what would have used revenues to do, which includes provision of schools, provision of basic hospital, primary and secondary health provision, and most importantly, provision of infrastructure. At the end of the day, what matters to majority of our people is quality of life and ease with which they can live their life decently. Majority of the people in Nigeria live in one subnational or the other. If cost of borrowing has eroded so much or has crowded out the impact of investment in the state, the truth will be that for most of those states, investment will be hampered, investment will be thwarted. And when this happens, most revenues that should go into such investment will go either into domestic servicing or foreign servicing. In the case of foreign service alone, we have seen sporadic jump of nearly 30%, and domestic, from the number you have shown, which shows the combination of all, it shows that we need to be very careful. When you look at what we did last year and what we do this year, and what we did 2024 and what we did last year, I understand with Mr. Wale Edun when he said that we need to have a zero mandate to borrowing for 2026. Here is it. If we don't do something about consistent borrowing, not just at federal level now, even at the subnational, we're going to put our exchange rate again under severe pressure. We have seen relative stability and some marginal improvement from 1,500 now to 1,340, 350 exchange rate. That should be commended. However, when debt grows sporadically, especially foreign debt, in a state where we have significant inflation, it will certainly have impact on the economy. So what should we be doing instead? Quite a number of things. But it's important for us to see that the money borrowed, on what are we spending? And to be fair, some governors have said, we made this money, we're not the one that borrowed. Now we practice democracy. So when you come into office, you are technically inheriting all the good, including secretariats that your predecessor has built, hiring humongous number of civil servants, whether they are all productive or not, you have inherited them. So when you say that I am Mr. Fix-It. I am here to fix the problem. When you jump into the river or into the sea or a pool in your house, please don't complain of water. We are here to solve the problem. Therefore, the problem must be solved. So the time to complain is not here, is not there at all. This is where we need to put up a thinking cap at the subnational and at the federal level into looking at how can we solve our fiscal challenge, because this is real fiscal challenge that steers the state in it. So remember that around 2021, 2022, 2023, 2021, 2022, the federal government came to the aid of subnational, giving them facilities, in some cases, giving the state palliatives. Was that able to bail them out of economic quagmire? The answer clearly is no. Why? Because reports had it that 25 of the 36 states plus FCT had major economic crisis. We have seen with the report that was recently published, with the exception of Lagos State, and perhaps you might want to also consider River State, but most of other states, you will see that they have significant or some level of impact with increase in their debt service. What should we therefore do is perhaps to boost IGR, to also think of having public-private partnership at the subnational level to help the states improve their investment or what they have spent money on. But this is what we should look at. And I am recommending this for state assemblies and indeed the National Assembly. For the states, I'm talking of subnational, and the state of Nigeria, that's the federal government, all recurrent expenditure must be funded by revenue, because it's sad to note that previously we have even borrowed to service, we have borrowed for recurrent. It's important that these two are purely funded by revenue generated by the government at the state or at the federal level.
All right, Dr. Alaje, you did mention something there about some of the governors actually inheriting some of this debt. So it almost seems like it's a vicious cycle at this point. One government comes in, one goes out, another comes in, racks up debts for the next one. At this point, should we look at it from should we have some kind of policy that can hedge against, this inheritance, that we've gotten used to when it comes to debt? What can we do? Can we say, you know what, you are not allowed to borrow at this point until we clear up, something?
Yes.
What can we do?
There must be debt cap. The federal government must take deliberate decision in setting debt cap, and I think that now we are looking at constitutional reviews. It's important to set debt cap, and there are a number of things that can be done. For the performance of the state over the years, what is the maximum limit that a state can collect? I've said that there are other windows, there are other measures with which we can get investment into the state. What we should never talk about is to look for debt to service a current debt or to use debt for recurrent expenditure. That state, a state that cannot use a revenue to finance current debt or use a revenue to finance recurrent expenditure, is largely having significant financial challenge. So, but if it's for capital expenditure, even at that, there must be a cap, such that for such waiver to be given beyond what the National Assembly is doing in auditing whether a state should get facility or not. But there should be a cap. Because if people from the same political party, people that have political alliance before, they can become biased in giving approvals. But when there is a cap that is strong, and we have allowed experts to help states look at whether they can finance, they can refinance, or what the impact that will be on their overall fiscal life, then we will start having healthy states. States will start thinking of developing their area of competitive cost advantage over others, instead of everybody wanting to do the same thing.
All right, in your view, do you think Nigerian states are borrowing to invest or just to survive?
I would like you to repeat that question.
Do you think Nigerian states are borrowing to invest, or they're just borrowing to survive at this point?
Well, both. And the numbers cannot lie. When states borrow, the essence of borrowing is to invest and ensure that what you are investing on the returns is enough in the medium and in the long run to pay back the loan. What does that mean? We have states with some areas that are very poor. Allow me to use, for the sake of example, let's say a GRA where the roads are bad. Grade the road, tar the road, make the road habitable. That will affect ground rent of the area. The ground rent goes up. You look at how much you generate in revenue. So, but when you do that, you have borrowed that money and you have invested it in the economy of the state. You have invested it in certain regions. I just use that as example. It's different from borrowing money because we have presented budget and this is what we must borrow. I tell you, I don't want to mention some states that are really culpable because it will look like one is attacking them. But some states, both in the north and south, are really culpable. No, there is no clear demarcation or stating areas where monies, which projects will be financed by borrowing. So if you look at it, for such states, what you do is to calculate their total real capital expenditure. In Nigeria, we have a culture of saying this is recurrent non-debt and recurrent debt or capital. You know, we have a name we give to you. But broadly speaking, your budget is either capital expenditure or recurrent expenditure. But for some states, we have now seen administrative capital, things that are administration, that are actually recurrent expenditure, but they are extension of capital expenditure. We should look at, if you are borrowing at all, it should be for key capital expenditure. If that happens, then we also measure what is the benefit of this. We are not saying we want to recover it in short term. In some cases, it may not even be medium term. It could be over 10, over 15 years. But the State Assembly, the National Assembly should agree that the impact of this borrowing will benefit the people. So, but if you are not doing that, the truth is we are only borrowing for survival.
Right, and looking at the politics of it at this point, where you have the executive and the legislature in good terms, who's going to check who at this point? Because it seems it gets hard for them to check each other.
Well, the check and balance line seems to be fading away, at least for federal, where you would expect the National Assembly to be a bit more thorough in considering the request from the executive for the overall health of our economy and of our nation. And that is a danger of having a very weak opposition among legislature that is not doing due diligence. We are not saying that opposition should serve as a body to disrupt governance or administration in a country or in a state. But we are saying that there must be that voice that must be loud, that must be clear, that must call incumbent to order. We have seen it before in this country without disrupting activity of government, because we don't want our government to be disrupted. But it's important to have opposing views to some things that may eventually, cost us a lot in the medium term or in the long term. So it's important to have those voices. So the National Assembly and state assemblies have a responsibility if truly they want to help the economy to grow further. But we should also know this is my worry. You have seen that fact share to state has sporadically improved. In some cases, 200, 250, and at a few times, nearly 300%. The question is, why are we still worried about borrowing? Why? With the major increments and improvements in what states get. We have seen federal government measure most of the policy we've made. We have pushed them to the subnational in terms of revenue to them. Was that a lie? It's not a lie. It's correct to say that subnational now gets more money. The way federal government gets more money, and more are also going to local government. But what has happened? The way revenue have improved, the way expenditure has even improved at higher rate than the rate of increase of revenue. You want to ask me why? The reason is what led to increase in our revenue. Subsidy removal, number two, which is a key issue we need to look at. The key issue is the valuation of our currency. When you do that, states that receive money also need to spend, especially when you talk of projects. We have seen government legislation regarding minimum wage from 30,000 to 70,000. For those places, you should expect spendings to increase as such. But beyond those, when it comes to going to the open market to price, we have seen that states also buy there are some states that have light up, state A, state B, state C. Cost of providing such services has also significantly improved. So if you are not careful, we might be having an issue of penny wise, pound foolish. That is why we need to think holistically. Fiscal and monetary cannot exist in isolation. The two must be married in order to give us a quality economy that we want to have.
Right, and I guess maybe another bright spot at this point. We did see the NRS reporting about 28 trillion collected in 2025, and now they have an ambitious target of 40.7 trillion in 2026. So hopefully that can help to offset some of these this debt servicing and hopefully the principal too. Thank you so much, Mr. Paul Alaje. Always great to have you on the show to help us unpack some of these economic matters. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.